Hi. So I'm in the passenger seat of my car, a 99 Ford Taurus. Very similar to a lot of other cars, not similar to some. Anyway, point is, I was driving around one day, my girlfriend was in the passenger seat, where I'm sitting now. She stores something in the glove box, and then just unfortunately, it stopped working. So, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna repair it. It's a simple repair. I mean, it's just a basic glove box. I'm sure a lot work this way. So if you need to fix your door locking or your glove box door locking mechanism to hold it in place, do it with me. Okay, so one thing I noticed on even further inspection, that's gonna make this easier for me. I've got socket heads down here, nut heads. Just 3 of them on the hinge. And I'm going to assume this is how most glove boxes are, the doors anyway. So I can use the socket wrench, unscrew those, and I'll have the whole glove box off, which will make those screws easier to get off. Okay, so if you get down to the heads of the bolts on the hinge, turns out they're 9/32. 9/32 is the dimension you need, which is a pretty weird socket size. A lot of people complain about this with cars because it's not your standard size. It's not a common one, and it's a socket head I don't have, so I might try to use some pliers or something, but it's awkward because the hinge kind of creates a hole around it that's hard to get into. I really don't even think it's a 9/32, because if you look closely, you can see like a 2 on it and some dots. I think what it is, it's a proprietary type head or size, like a Ford only type. Some car companies did this just so they'd have like certified repair people, and there's a lot of history to it I'm not super aware of, which means your typical tool set probably won't unlock this for you, so you're gonna have to do some sort of workaround. So the first thing I'm sure you'll see with a lot of glove boxes, there's gonna be some sort of screw, multiple screws most likely, and it's gonna be a plastic case over your mechanism. So in my case, I'm moving the knob now, the handle now, and I believe this thing needs to be moving. I don't know though. So very carefully take out all your screws, store them somewhere where you're not going to lose them, and then we'll look at the mechanism. Okay, so a few things I've learned already going into this. One, it's probably going to be dark in areas. Even if you're in good light, just because of where the glove box is at, it's not going to be super bright. So use a flashlight. Second thing I learned is, after unscrewing these initial screws, there's some back there as well. What's awkward about that is my regular size Phillips head can't reach back there. So you may have awkward spots that you need a smaller screwdriver for. Luckily, I have a tinier one, but it's a flathead. So I'm gonna see if this works. Okay, so I have one of those Phillips head bits that comes in a set like this. Problem is, it attaches to a screwdriver that's still too big for that area. So I'm gonna put that in place and then use some lockjaw pliers, some grips, vice grips, that will lock around it, and then I'll lightly turn them to loosen it. They're not flat jaw though, they've got grooves, so they might damage it some, but that's okay. For me, if you don't want to damage yours, don't do this. Hopefully you have a screwdriver small enough. Okay, so getting my glove box to separate was super awkward. It required the use of lockjaw pliers and then just a tiny little head that fit, or tiny Phillips head, number 2, that fit into the screws. It was just awkward because you had to get back in a crevice there. So if you have the proprietary socket head for the hinge part, go for it. Otherwise, you're going to have to split it in 2. Now, I don't know if your glove box is going to be like this or not. Hopefully not. A lot of the newer ones can just completely pop out plastic-wise. Now, my actual mechanism, it's just 4 more Phillips head screws to get it out. So now I got my mechanism free. It was really just 3 Phillips head screws Took a lot of effort to get it out. Now you know sometimes for certain car jobs why they charge so much labor. I mean, their rates are a lot more than the people get paid, so you're getting ripped off there. But sometimes it does take a decent amount of time to get to something. I thought this part was going to take some effort to figure out, you know, some mechanisms, a spring. Really, there was a plastic piece sticking out the back. I pressed on it. And now look, it's moving again. A lot of mechanisms like this are just basic plastic pieces on tracks, a lot of times with a spring. If anything ever snaps back on its own, there's a spring in there, just a curved piece of metal. So just make sure everything's on its path. A lot of designs are different, but they're still a very similar concept. A plastic piece goes on a path, moves, and the spring pushes it back. Just lots of levers and simple motions. You can kind of follow it through. So pretty much this, normally the spring keeps it closed around that bar. But then when you pull the latch, it opens it up. So it allows the metal bar to come out, which frees the whole glove box. So I'm going to screw everything back in and have my glove box working. So in summary, about how a lot of really basic doors work, glove boxes and other compartments, you have a metal bar. Okay, then you have your handle. When you push your door up, see the curve of this plastic? It pushes against that metal bar and it kind of rides the hill down, rides the slope down, pushing it out. As soon as it gets through, overcomes the spring, gets into its gap in the hole there. This part springs forward again. We can thank our spring for that. So there's our bar. Did you hear it snap? Now it won't come out because that bar's in the groove. Push your spring back, it locks back. It naturally pushes on the slope, moves it out of the way, gets into the grooved area, and the spring pushes the plastic back over it. So after working out in my hot car for about an hour, look what I got done. Here's my glove box. Bam, it stays shut. And I can open it again. Ta-da! All because we got that mechanism back on track. And we unscrewed some things. I'm actually going to leave these far screws down here out. Because it still looks the same. It looks just as good. And if it's going to break again, I don't have to put all that effort into getting the back ones out anymore. So in summary, we had a glove box that wouldn't stay shut. It's because a little mechanism that gets pushed back on a spring, part of it came out of the track, right? So it was just stuck out of the way. We unscrewed that part of the mechanism, popped it back on track, and it moves again. So it moves out of the way and then snaps back over a bar, kind of hooks over it. It took a little bit of effort just because some of the things were hard to get to. If you have a special kind of Ford socket head set, you can take off the whole glove box from the 3 socket nuts connected to a hinge, which would work really well. Otherwise, you're going to have to be kind of awkward and pop your glove box in half. Now, a lot of newer glove boxes have plastic pieces that just pop off. But as for the older ones, I'm sure they're kind of similar to this design. So please, before you take it to a shop and spend $50, if you have some basic tools, try it yourself.